What's the first thing you can do right now to get started?
Meet Brian Ondrako, a proud dad, entrepreneur, and guide for professionals ready to take control of their lives and careers.
Look at anyone that's quote unquote successful. They've taken control. They've taken the reins and said, I'm going to do it my way.
His life wasn't always this way. For years, he played small, stuck in self-doubt, avoiding risks, and waiting for change instead of creating it. His turning point came in 2008 when he hit rock bottom. He was buried in debt, unfulfilled in his career, and lost without direction. That moment forced him to make a choice: stay stuck or take control.
And that really was a catalyst to change really the trajectory of my life to where we're at today.
He chose change and learned that fulfillment isn't a finish line, but a daily commitment to growth, resilience, and taking bold action. Now, through self-mentorship, podcasting, writing, and books, he challenged overwhelmed professionals to overcome self-limiting beliefs and find their inner compass as their inner personal guide to a life and business they are proud of. And the good part is that you don't have to wait for the rock bottom moment to start. The choice to move forward is always in your hands. If you're ready to take the first step, this conversation I have with Brian will fit like a glove. Enjoy. Brian, so happy to have you here.
Nice to finally meet you in person. I know we've connected on LinkedIn for a little while, so we'd always meet face to face.
Yeah, indeed. And you have quite a fascinating journey. And I know that at some point you were almost rock bottom. And I'd like to ask you, how did you overcome that moment, or what made you turn your life around?
Yeah, I probably had many, moments like that. I mean, there's kind of a couple significant ones. So maybe let me start there and then I'll get to, how did I kind of overcome it? Hey, have you ever heard this Confucius quote? We have two lives. The second begins when we realize we have one. That's kind of been the thesis of my life. I've realized I had this tale of two different lives. I grew up with just a lot of self-limiting beliefs, not feeling I was good enough, not feeling like I could expand my horizons and do things that were extraordinary. I kind of played very much small ball for a long time. And it was at many points in kind of early adulthood where I started to kind of push on that and kind of be like, wait a minute, there's got to be something else here. And, you talk about rock bottom, like the moment that kind of really crystallizes for me is like around 2008. So, I'm early in my 20s. And I was in the golf industry. It was my first career. Like I had, I love golf, but like the business side of things, it financially wasn't the best in the world. And I had a lot of debt. I was kind of lonely at times. I had friends, but I felt like I was working a lot and I didn't really have a chance to kind of, branch out and do some other things. And anyways, it was just this moment where I felt like, what's the point of this thing? Like, is this it? Just day in and day out, this kind of mundane type life that I was living. And that kind of really kicked me into gear. Around that same time, just for more context, I think it's maybe helpful for other folks going through this, is I was working for this one company and that company ended up going bankrupt. So they didn't send us our last two paychecks. So here I am already struggling with cash and a lot of debt and having a hard time paying, my rent. And that was just a moment that really solidified to me, I got to do something a little different. And it's really what started to shape me in this new direction, partly with changing my thinking and partly with leaning on others. And this is whole part of my journey of we don't do this alone. So leaning on others and giving them the chance to say, Brian, I want to help you, and letting them help me, not saying, oh, I got to do this myself, and kind of letting the ego down, which I had for a lot of years. So that's what started to change. We can go into those, nooks and crannies a little bit more if you want, but that's kind of, 2008-ish was that point where I really had to change the paradigm, or I did. I don't know the alternative path, by the way, Gabe. I don't have the ultimate dimension where I didn't make that decision and who knows where I'd be. I decided to make that change and take control. And that really was a catalyst to change really the trajectory of my life to where we're at today.
And I will say that you're one of the lucky ones, because often this moment of change for a lot of people come later in life. And I can resonate a lot because I did that shift as well in my 20s. I think we are at a point back then when we still have drive, energy, and all the good stuff that young individuals have and can easily make shifts in their life. But in your case, I'd love to know, once you made a decision, and often that initial point to make the decision to do something about it, to just start, like I love to say, and you're driving by this mission, how that turned from a decision to an actual action, because that's often what people face a roadblock when it comes to making steps in the right direction.
Well, I wish there was anything more than I just decided to take action. Like, I know everyone wants the silver bullet. I just made the choice. I took the action. So I'll give you an example. I don't know if you know, I know you're a world traveler, but over here in the US, like Dave Ramsey's a very big, like finance kind of quote unquote guru, very well known. And I still remember it was early 2009. My brother gifted me The Total Money Makeover. It's a great book I'd recommend to anyone that's in a lot of debt. Like many books were gifted or given. What do we typically do? We use it as like a coaster, like we put it away. And I wasn't a big reader at that time, but it was my brother gave it to me. He had kind of started to use it to change his life a little bit. So I said, all right, I'm going to take a look. I'm going to read through it. And not to go deep into Dave Ramsey stuff, but it's basically like a debt snowball, he calls it. There's like a couple steps to slowly start paying off debt and getting in the right, putting an emergency fund, et cetera. So I read that book. I don't know how long it took me, a few days, a week or so. Like I really dove into it. And then I did his like first couple steps. So one of the hard things was like I sold several items I had. Like I'm a big Tiger Woods fan. I was a golfer, like still a golfer. So I met Tiger when I was, I guess I was 13. It was his third PGA Tour event. I remember as a kid going up to him, he was like 20 years old, and I had his signature on a Nike hat. I mean, it was a prized possession to me. And I remember putting that on eBay and selling it. And I got like $350, which was a lot of money at the time for me back in 2008 when I was broke. And I did that with many items to help me start on that path, on that journey. So I took action where years before I never did. So I wish it was, again, easy to say, like, do this, that, and the other thing. It's like as simple as what's right in front of you. What's the first thing you can do right now to get started? I don't know what step 10 is because it's going to be different for everyone. But what's step 1? What's the first thing you can do to really make that impact in your life? And then you have to show up again tomorrow and do something else, right? It really is that simple. It's just not that easy. Because we're fighting all these, self-limiting beliefs that we have, or like we're not good enough or whatever.
Indeed, and I think that's one of the biggest roadblocks, that we always play ourselves down. And the other is the lack of, I won't say direction, more of clarity, that people often don't make that step to take action because they don't know in what direction to go. For example, that book, in your case, give you that clarity, like, you need to put your finances in order. You need to do something about it to exit that situation. And I talk to a lot of people that lack this. They lack this clarity. How do you find it? How do you manage to make sure that the direction you're going to take is not just, something to unlock you from the situation, but something that actually you'll be able to do it consistently, act upon it every single day rather than just getting started?
The thing that I've discovered, at least, and by the way, I didn't know it back then, it just felt right. It felt like, okay, I'm in a lot of this debt. Here's this book. Let's go in this direction. And it was the same way, like when I made a shift from leaving the golf industry to go into more general business sales. Like I didn't know that was the right answer. It just felt right because I didn't love the golf industry anymore. And that's maybe the first step. I don't know if you've taken this maybe with your life, your career, but I know a lot of folks I talk with, they've never sat and asked themselves, what do I want? What makes me happy? What do I enjoy doing? Like simple questions, but most people don't ask themselves that question. And when you don't ask those questions, what do we typically do? We go after what's right in front of us. Like, oh, that looks cool, or that's the hot item today, or that's the cool platform to play on, or whatever it is. And I think if we take a step back And I always encourage people, like, get a pad of paper, set 30 minutes timer on your phone, put your phone, across the room. You'll hear it go off, and just sit and ask yourself, what do I want in life? And by the way, I don't care if you come up with an answer. What I care about is that you struggle with coming up with the answer. I care that you actually like sit with it and you're like, God, you know what? I don't know what I want. I'm not sure. Oh, well, I really like doing this, or this fills me up, or I like being around these people, or whatever it is. Like, that's the first step. If you don't know that, the decisions you make, I don't know if they're going to be good or not. But I can tell you, if you make a decision in line with what you might want, you definitely have a better chance of it working out in your favor. But that's what I would say, at least. I don't know if you agree with that, if you've went through that journey.
Yeah, funny enough that I first started to ask myself what I'm actually wanting in life and in business and so on was just a few years ago. Because I literally followed the path that you mentioned. I took action on what was hot, on what was, I don't know, problem solving for the current situation that I was in, or something like that. I never asked myself, like, this is something that I would truly enjoy, or I act on a gut feeling most of the time. Same, for example, in my lifestyle. Took action by seeing others doing it. I was already working from home for like 7 years. Like, what I'm doing here? Why I'm not working from a beach in Bali or in Thailand or whatever? And it took courage, like 1 year. I didn't have the courage to do so, but after that, I took that step. But that's the thing. I don't know many people that do what you just said. And I think it's wrong because we can uncover so much if we just sit ourselves without the distraction of the phone and anything else to just contemplate of what we actually want, what the impact, what's something that we want to leave behind us, not just, I don't know, our personal fulfillment and stuff. And do you have any specific questions that you ask yourself, like that can reveal deeper potential meaning to that exercise?
Well, let me take them in two paths. So first is I have a question I ask myself often, and it's actually on my bathroom mirror. And I've had it since 2019 on my bathroom mirror. And the question is, why can't it be you? And the question exists because I would question myself. Like, I'd see someone else doing something. I'd be like, oh, that's kind of cool, but that's not, yeah, you can't do that, or you're not good enough, or, again, beating myself up over and over again until I realized, I said, I could do anything actually. Will I be successful at it? Will it be like the greatest thing? Or I have no idea, but I'm never going to know until I do it. And so the question, this is something people can ask themselves more as a direct accountability, is why can't it be you? So if you're like, oh, I shouldn't try out for that team, or I shouldn't do this or that or whatever. For me, it was, and the reason the question came about, it was because of my first children's book. And I was kind of questioning, should I publish it or not? And I thought it was so dumb now looking back, like, why was I so scared of publishing the damn thing? But I was, and I shelved it for many years. And when I picked it back up, I was still, yeah, I should do this. So anyways, why can't it be you is a great question to ask ourselves when we are thinking we're not good enough. Again, when we're kind of almost stopping before we even start. Put that up in the accountability mirror and really see, how do you respond to that? Does it feel good? It shouldn't feel good. And then you should question why it doesn't feel good, right? Because oftentimes the things that don't feel good are the things we maybe should be trying to do. Okay. So that's one side. I'll put a pin in that for a second. The other thing is, like, when you think about like questions, like, it's easy to pose whatever. We can come up with a lot of questions, right? Like, one of my favorites is like, is it true? Something I learned from, reading a book by Byron Katie many years ago. Is it true? Like, oh, I can't do this. Is it true? Or this person's a-hole. Is that true? Like, is it true? It's such a simple question to ask ourselves, to really battle, again, going back to, are we just making up this story in our head? Or do you actually have factual evidence behind what you're saying? So if you're like, oh, I'm not good enough to do that, is that true? Because most of the time it's not. And most of the time it's some sort of belief we came up with, or it was because the people we were around, or maybe we had one failed attempt and all of a sudden we think that is, the end all be all. I think the answer, or excuse me, the questions come by taking the action. Like you don't know necessarily the questions to ask until you actually try something, until you feel that little reserve of like, oh, should I do this? Or maybe you actually accomplish something or try it. And then you, on the other end, you think, that didn't go as I planned. What could I do different? Did I like that? Did I not like that? Let me ask you this. I'll throw it back at you. What is something you're doing today that you never thought you would do 10 years ago? Just what first thing to mind? What comes?
This podcasting.
Okay, wonderful. Podcast, right? So think about the podcast. You never 10 years ago would have thought of doing a podcast at all. No idea how to do one. If someone asked you, hey, can you do a podcast? You'd be like, I have no idea. I've never done it. I don't even know how to start a podcast. Now you do. Now you're on the other side of it, right? But there was a time, I don't know what day it was, maybe you do, of like, you're like, podcasts? Could I do that? I'm not sure. It wasn't until you actually did it where you're like, and it's probably very similar to me, right? When I started the podcast, I was like, God, this makes me feel alive. I love doing this. I love talking to people. Wait, let me try that again. Let me do that again. Okay, this is good. And you realize, and then there's things in our life where we try and we don't like, and we stop doing because we tried it and we didn't like it. We have to have those experiences. But if we're unwilling to even take that first step to even see if we like it, it's like dating, right? You don't just, well, maybe some people do. You don't just date one person and be like, that's it. Never. Maybe, I'm sure people have that experience, but a lot of times it's like, oh yeah, nice person, not the right fit, different vision in life, yeah, whatever, right? And eventually start, okay, this feels better. Oh, let me keep going down this path, right? And you explore that. So again, it goes back to if we're unwilling to take the first step or first couple steps, you're never going to know the questions you should be asking. And this is where, like, I'm a big believer in prototyping. Like, try something. So maybe it's a podcast, right? You don't have to commit to 5 years or 7 years or 10 years. Commit to 5 episodes. Figure out how to start it. Get a few people, interview them. Like, launch it. Put it out on Spotify. Like, figure out how this all works and see after 5 episodes if you even like doing it. And if you do, then maybe do 5 more, right? So you don't have to commit long term. Just start small. But the biggest thing is to start. So anyways, that's a long-winded way around your, what questions to ask yourself. But I think a lot of them come up after we actually do it.
Yeah, indeed, because the path that we just start always uncover those things, right? It's like the next questions, the next trigger, the next obstacle, and so on. And I love how you position that around ownership. Because at the end of the day, a lot of people that live with regret, they simply don't take that. They don't take ownership on their own behavior, on their own actions. And it's a pity because I feel like every single human has inside them something creative, something to share, something to leave behind as a legacy. And still, as someone that started so many things and I tried so many things that grab my interest, I end up into a position where something that I enjoy, I wasn't able to build any sort of momentum and I just simply quit. And others, like for example with this podcast, I find ways to make it fun and ways to energize me because, as you know, there are a lot of bits into building a podcast and I don't enjoy every single aspect of it. But the conversation, I truly enjoy. So I focus on that and take everything else off my plate as much as possible. So that's how I build momentum. But in your case, how did you manage to, once you get started with something, for example, your podcast or anything else that you put on your plate, especially when you have other things to do? Like I know that you run a podcast while having a full-time job. And that's, I assume, not easy to do at all.
Yeah, I mean, we all have stuff, all right? I'm a single parent as well, right? And I do a lot of different projects. I do coaching, like I'm very active in fitness. Like there's so many things that we do. It comes down to priority. But I want to go back a second because you said a word there, which I really love, is ownership. And that's why, like, I've thought about this so much over the last couple of years as I've really tried to refine, okay, you have this just get started mission. How do you help people get started? Like, what is the catalyst for them? What did you do? And I use a different word than ownership. I use control, because I can't control a lot of things, but the things I can control are the things that could really shift my life in the right direction or the wrong direction, I guess, if I don't do them. I choose to do this podcast, right? I had to accept to be on here and do this, right? I choose to get up and work out. I choose to show up to be a great parent to my son. Like, I make the choice. I'm in control of that. I can't control a lot of things, but I can control everything that I actually am doing. So whether I do the podcast, or I've been doing the podcast now for over 7 years, right? I choose to show up to each episode to try to bring my best. Am I on all the time? Most likely not, right? But I try to do my best. I've refined it over the years. Same way with coaching, same way with anything, right? It's like I am making the commitment because I decided to take control. And that's where, when you think the rubber meets the road, look at anyone that's quote unquote successful. They've taken control. They've taken the reins and said, I'm going to do it my way. And there might be some things that get in my way that I can't control, and I have to deal with those. But the things that I can make a decision about, I'm going to do. So that's what I did. I've been going back to the story about taking control of my finances. I did it. No one else did it. I had to take control. I had help. It wasn't easy, but I took control. I took control of my health. Like when I started CrossFit back in 2018, technically I started it, right? I took control. And so when I think back over and over, I said, you know what the difference is between the Brian, the second life, if you remember the Confucius quote from the beginning, the second life of Brian is I've taken control. The first life was just kind of being in the wind and letting the wind kind of move me and going in whatever direction everyone else is. That was the biggest difference. And that's how I've been able to change my life for the better.
I want to introduce you to someone. Gabe from about 20 years ago, and even Brian from the past. Why do you tell them to build this mindset? Because in theory it sounds so easy. We just have to take control and do that first step, and everything else will fall into place. But we all know that's not often the case. What are the pillars that arrive and build the current Brian?
Well, as I look back, and this is where, I developed this framework called Compass. It's a nice, fun acronym because I believe in just get started, as a navigator and having the compass guide us. So it works nice. But really, let me go through it quick because I think this is helpful maybe as a guidepost for folks. So Compass as an acronym, right? So the C is commitment. The O is objective. The M is mindset. The P is priorities. The A is accountability. The S is support. And then the final S is start. And that start brings you into a whole nother world of starting whatever you want to do. But the reason I bring that up is if you work down the list, like think of anything, Gabe, as I'm saying this, think of your own life, like anything you've started, maybe the podcast used as an example, right? You had to make a commitment because you can't just say, I'm going to do a podcast because there's no, I guess, stronghold to it. Right. So I have to make a commitment. This is why I'm a big believer, not to go down a tangent, but I think of how many times we always say, oh, I'm going to change. Oh, I'm going to change. I'm going to do it better. And then we don't do it. We all are at fault for that. But when you make a commitment to change, it's a different ballgame. You start setting some really clear paths. And that's where objective comes in. So I'm going to make a commitment to change. That's a different ballgame. Right? Because now I'm going to actually lay out some groundwork of how I'm going to accomplish that. It's not just in the wind, I'm going to change. So I make a commitment first. Now I set some objectives. What are those objectives? Like, again, this goes back to asking the question, what do I want? Now, it might be more of the holistic life approach. It might be just with the specific maybe the podcast, right? What do I want with the podcast? What am I trying to achieve? So what's my objective? Then we have to look at your mindset because most people probably have some sort of self-limiting belief. Maybe they're hesitant, right? Maybe who knows, right? There's a fear. So we have to really work on getting our mindset in order. So that's a big part of getting started because there's a lot of times you get to commitment. made the commitment. I know what I want to do. I want to start this podcast. And then the mindset goes and we stop, right? I did that when I wrote my first children's book in 2012. I stopped for 7 years, put it on the shelf, didn't do anything with it, right? That was me. I hit the M. And then I was like, nope, I'm not good enough. So my mindset wasn't there. So then we have to get the mindset set. Then we have to prioritize. This goes back to the steps. I don't know the steps, by the way, right? I don't know the steps because everyone's going to be totally different. But what are those first couple steps to take? So how do you prioritize the things that you want to do? Now, again, that might be on a grander scale. It also might be on very micro scale of like, oh, I got to do this, these three things over the next couple of weeks, right? So it's going to be different for everyone. So there's no exact answer, but priorities, what's most important, which means other things have to move off that priority list. Okay, so we have our priorities. Now we have accountability. That's that accountability mirror I talked about, right? How do we hold ourselves accountable to say, all right, I made this commitment. This is where I want to go. I feel confident, right? I'm going to overcome this fear. I know it's challenging, but I've kind of walked through that. And I have my priorities. What's my accountability? Now, this is where it's nice if you do have an accountability partner and where support could come in, the kind of accountability and support. But I like to think of accountability in two fronts. One is the accountability to yourself. Like, what are you going to do? So that is, maybe it's, hey, I'm going to show up at X time to do this. Or like here's a very simple example, right? Oh, I want to get in shape. Okay, well, I'm going to get a personal trainer. Because now you're paying for a personal trainer. You have to show up at 6 a.m. with them. Well, that's accountability. So if you know yourself and you can't get out of bed and you have a trouble, well, then maybe you need to pay someone to be that accountability partner for you. So again, accountability is one of those things where we could have all the other stuff, but if we don't take accountability, that ownership, that control, we're not going to get it done. So you have to really sit and figure out who you are, and that ultimately leads you down that path. And then support is just like my brother giving me the book, or I've had other friends and mentors, and it's that support system. Surround yourself with the people you want to be around, right? If you don't like the group you're with, change it. I love the quote of like, you can't change the people around you, but you can change the people around you. So find the right people if you don't have them in your life. And if you do have them, lean into them, ask them for support, ask them to be that accountability partner. But that in a nutshell is the Compass framework. And if you walk through it step by step, it gives you clarity on where you're maybe holding back and what you need to potentially do to get started.
Thanks so much for sharing that. In my view, it's not just actionable, but it's something that people take and apply in so many aspects of their life. And to dive into the last one, the support part, often we don't realize indeed how much someone that you have around us can raise us or literally drown us if we don't surround ourselves with the right individuals. And I know that you're big into building relationships and surrounding yourself to the right individuals. You are looking for different things when you select them, quote unquote, or how do you make sure you're not around a toxic individual that drags you down or something like that?
Part of that's probably awareness, right? Is like, is this person even good for me or not, right? And I guess I would like, hopefully, people to have that social awareness of like, this person's kind of not nice or whatever. I would say is, find some people that are in line with your values, right? If you're going to hang around them a lot, and you only learn that by being around them. There might be people you hang out with, you're like, oh, this person's awesome. And then you're like, they're kind of a dick. Like they're not nice to be around. You don't know that until you actually get around them, right? We all have friends that maybe we're not friends with anymore, that they were, they're cool, they're fun. And then you're like, I don't like how they treat the waiter, and like that type of thing. And so I take it on two fronts. One is, let's talk about in-person relationships, right? Because that's different than what I like to call virtual mentor. So support can come in a couple different ways. So it could be your network you build of like maybe people local to you, and maybe they're, maybe you all know them online, but like you have actually conversations like you and I are having, right? You have discussions, you actually talk with them and have deeper conversations, and they become more friends or mentors or what have you. And then you have your virtual mentor, right? That's following the Gary Vaynerchuks of the world of like, I've never met Gary in person, but I feel like I've known him because I've followed his content for 14 years. And it's like, okay, well, like there's benefit to that because that's giving me a wealth of education and knowledge and insight and what have you. So I think picking those right people as well. So it's on two fronts: is what's your values, who feels good to follow, and then also who's actually in line with your level of thinking. Like for instance, like with what I'm trying to build, not only with the podcast, but really this just get started mission, right? In my coaching, like I'm trying to follow people that are a few steps ahead of me, people that have done that before. And so like, not that I won't follow someone that's building like a big, massive business, like tech business or something. Yeah, it might be cool, right? I might follow them, might get some insights. But I actually, since I'm trying to build a business from the ground up, I want to follow someone that's a few steps ahead of me. They're in it now, right? So for me, that's exciting. Talking with those people, being around those people, because they're not at level 52 of the game. They're like at level 4 and 5 of the game where I'm at level 1 or 2, right? So they're just ahead of me. It's the same where, I've had people come up to me and ask me about like, getting started and, the podcast or all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, maybe I'm a couple steps ahead of them. Where before I was at 0, now I'm at a couple steps and they're at 0, right? So we all have that. So that's why I love giving back as well. But yeah, God, I'd like to say like, it's like, look for these 4 qualities, but I think a lot of it is like, you have to follow people, try to be around them, try to have some conversations. And if you enjoy them and you're getting value, then keep with it. And if you're not, it's okay to not hang out with them anymore, right? It's okay to not fuel that relationship. I mean, that's the same for virtual mentors. Like if you're scrolling Instagram and you're seeing a lot of like negativity, don't follow those people anymore. It's your feed, right? You can block those people. You can not, do that. But we choose to keep going down that rabbit hole for some reason. And again, we have to go back and ask ourselves why. I don't know if that answered your question. I jumped around there.
No, I actually did. And the reason why I ask it, because I struggled with this at some point in my life. I was a very reserved individual. And when I was out there in the open and trying to make friends, I ended up in the position to be a people pleaser. And every single individual that was, like you described, a few steps ahead or where I wanted to be, I tend to follow without actually investigating further or without actually spending time with them or talking more with them to see how they actually are. Until, of course, I learn it on my own skin. And now I do something similar to what you do, with what you preach. And I think those that are watching or listening to us right now, they truly need to understand that this type of relationship or this type of awareness is not built overnight. And what I do, I often try to sit and some sort of audit the circle that I surround myself with. And not just from a perspective of, personal fulfillment, but as well, if I'm giving enough back and so on.
You're right. It's a give take, for sure. And we have to be willing to ask, going back to what you said, like that people pleaser, because I can relate to that a ton. We have to be willing to step out and ask and say, hey, I have this question, or would you mind sitting with me for 30 minutes and talking? And by the way, one, we have to recognize, especially people that are accomplished and successful, they're really keen on their time and they try not to waste it on just like random stuff, right? So I'm respectful if someone declines or doesn't get back to me. Like, it's not like, oh, they're, whatever, they don't want to help me. It's like, maybe they have other stuff going on. Like I protect my time just as much. However, those are one of the qualities I look for. Like if someone's like, yeah, Brian, I'll give you 30 minutes. Let's talk. Because chances are someone gave them that time when they were starting out. And it's the same way, like I can't talk to everyone. It's not like I have a million people reaching out to me anyways, but like when people do reach out or ask questions, like I try to give back. Whether it's a quick response or I jump on a call, I try to help where I can because I know how many people lifted me up to get me to where I am today. This was definitely not done alone. whether you can think of accomplishments that I have or just the mindset I have, it was through a wealth of individuals that supported me through my journey. So I think that's a big quality for me is like they show up, they want to help. And although they're respectful of their time, they also know that, hey, if I give Brian 10 minutes, maybe that'll help him, kind of push him a little ahead. So I think the biggest thing we have to ask, don't be scared of like, oh, they're out in my, out in a different sphere. I shouldn't be talking to them. You never know until you put it out there. That's probably, I mean, think of the guests you've had on the podcast. I mean, I look at some of the guests I've had on my podcast, never would have had them if I just didn't reach out and say, hey, would you want to join? And I'm like, oh my God, they said, yes, this is awesome. And here they are, So I just think we have to be more welcoming to that, lean into that a little bit more. And who cares what happens, right?
Yeah, and at the end of the day, even if you face a rejection, it's not the end of the world. And yeah, it's interesting that thing that you just mentioned, since often we don't realize how open people are, especially if they see something in you, or I don't know, they resonate with your values, resonate with what you're doing. And speaking of like inviting others into your podcast, and especially people that you probably look up to, and the biggest names out there, and at the end of the day, almost everyone kind of love to talk about themselves or what they do and so on, or having a conversation. We are social animals at the end of the day. And that's the beauty of it, right? Like you don't have to put this blanket in front of us and say, oh, only these people in front of it will accept to talk to me or will answer my message or will answer my phone or whatever. And all the others are not within reach. Because in reality, they are, and some of them will answer to you. And to continue on that note, since you have a huge experience in sales, how important it's to hear that no, not only building your mindset, but if you are speaking about sales, into getting the next yes?
Well, I mean, I think the reason no is important is it just builds resilience and shows us that it doesn't actually matter. I mean, I think no can also solidify maybe the path we should be going. If you, it's an example, if you, let's take from a sales standpoint, if you hear a lot of no's, the question is is my value proposition there? Am I talking to the right people? Like, how I'm going about it, is that the right way? So it gives us a chance to question ourselves. It's kind of the whole definition of insanity. Like you keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So hearing no actually gives us a chance to be like, huh, I thought that would have worked. All right, well, let me tweak it and try it this way. So it also ultimately gives us that opportunity. But I think it just builds resilience. Like the more you hear no, the more you're like, who cares? Right? It's not like they're going to come across the phone and, slap me or anything like that. Like who cares if they, so actually my sales experience has really helped me with the podcast because I'm not afraid to reach out to the biggest names in the world and ask them to be on the podcast. Because I'm like, most likely they're not going to get back to me. If they do, maybe it's going to be a polite no. And then by the way, it gives me a chance to I have a couple folks that I keep following up with them, and they're like, yeah, Brian, hey, he's right. Like I just got one yesterday. I won't say his name, but like his assistant got back to me and was like, hey, he's writing his new book. He's about to have a child. But can you follow back later in 2026? And to kind of set it up. Sure. Well, that's a long time out. All right. I'm going to set a reminder and I'm going to follow up when they ask. And I've done this with several people and, maybe they can't come on today, but they can come on in 12 months. If we stop making it about us and we make it about them, it changes the ball game. It's not about, now they don't want to come on my podcast and like there's some kind of ego there. No, it's like they got other stuff going on in their life. I'm grateful that they're even considering it. I mean, I'm grateful when anyone comes on because I'm like, wow, you've taken time out and you appreciate, kind of what I'm trying to do here. So Yeah, I think hearing no is phenomenal. It's what we do with the no that could really be a game changer.
And I love how you use that around the sales discussion in order to dive a bit deeper to actually investigate what's going on right there. Maybe it's something that's, I don't know, like you said, is maybe your pitch or your value proposition or something else that needs improvement. And asking ourselves that question. And speaking of that, or speaking of sales, I have a confession to make. I had like 5 years of experience in sales, and I used to hate it with passion because I was told that sleazy type of approach to sales, like that's something that was pushed down my throat. And I thought that's selling, trying to convince someone to buy something that they don't actually need. And until I realized that it's totally different ball game, it was a tough period. And if someone is in that position and they are really struggling to sell themselves, their services, and so on, if it will be just one advice you can give them, what will be?
I mean, one, figure out why you're doing it. Like whatever, if let's go back to what you were saying, because I think a lot of people unfortunately have bad experiences with sales. They get trained poorly, or they have a bad conception on it, or a misconception, so they get into it incorrectly. But my first question is like, do you believe in what you're selling? Because if you believe in what you're selling, right, you're going to go into it with a positive mindset. You're going to go into it feeling like I could really help this person on the other side of the conversation, right? So if you don't believe that, what are you doing? You're trying to sell someone something that you don't believe in. Like I don't know if that you can get up many mornings in a row and be like confident with that. So that'd be my first question: is if someone's struggling there, it's like, well, first, do I believe in what I'm selling? If the answer is yes, well, obviously, if the answer is no, go sell something else, like do something else. But if the answer is yes, like I really believe in it, then it comes back to empathy. It comes back. Like, I'm so big on empathy. It's like, what is the other person experiencing? What's going on in their life? How do you get to know them better? And ultimately, how does that relate to your product and service? And we have to get really good at saying that we're not the right fit. One of the things that changed my sales career, going from just kind of like figuring out sales to being like a top performer and really bringing in some great clients, is I started getting good with the phrase like, I don't know if I'm going to be a fit. I'm not sure if we're a fit. Like letting people know right off the bat, like, I'm not sure yet. Like we have a lot of discovery to do. We're not a fit for everyone. Let's figure this out. And once you start making it a two-way conversation, like, okay, now I understand the buyer better. I'm understanding where they're coming from, what their problems are, what they're challenged with. I understand what we do great. Where's the marriage between those? And is there one? And when you start going down that path, it's a different conversation. It's a peer-to-peer relationship. It's not the buyer's up here and I'm down here and I'm just trying to sell them, like you said earlier, like try to convince them or persuade them. No, it's they need something. They have some problem. We have this solution. It could be a fit. Let's figure out where we meet in the middle and where we can help. And if there's a fit, awesome. I think we're going to be a great fit for you because of X, Y, and Z. But you also have to be prepared to say, we could help you, I think, in this area, but you're looking for these two other things. We're not going to be the best fit for it. I can make some, recommendations for you or whatever. Maybe you start here and then you figure it out from there. But like, you have to be willing to be upfront and honest with people. And that only starts with having empathy. So that's kind of how I would start people down the conversation of selling.
I really like that, especially because I used to be in this place where in marketing, you can basically upsell them or sell them everything that you want because they need help with that and with that. And at the beginning, I was doing that. I was saying yes to almost every project until I noticed that, wait a second, I don't deliver results on that aspect. And exactly to your point, that wasn't really the good fit. But on the other aspect, that was my zone of genius. And that's why I don't agree with people that say, I just say yes to that opportunity. But that yes to that opportunity might bring someone else's business down or it might be affected. Instead of getting better at what you're already good at, and that's something else.
You can have bad clients too, remember. So just you bring in 10 clients and 7 aren't the right fit. Now you might have 7 bad references. They're talking bad about you because they didn't get the full experience that they thought they were going to get, right? It wasn't the right fit. So now they're unhappy, right? There's a lot of bad that can happen for bringing in the wrong client just as well. And that's where qualifying, I mean, I call it disqualifying. Like, how could you disqualify as quick as you can? Because the quicker you can disqualify, it means that you're actually putting them more up front, kind of in figuring out their needs. Because all the time you're like, does that fit with what we're doing? Wait, can we really help them? Is there a long-term partnership here? You're trying to disqualify. Well, really what you're doing is you're learning so much about them and their problems, their needs, what their desires are, and you're trying to mesh that with what you do and what you do well. Because you might be able to do a lot of things, but do you do those things well? And is it going to be a net positive for the client? That's how you should be thinking about sales. And by the way, the better you do that, you bring in these unbelievable clients that are with you for a long time. When you don't do that, yeah, you might get some clients, maybe you get some cash in the bank, but then what happens? Maybe they leave you, they churn, you have bad references, right? There's a lot of negative down the hill that could happen. So just be careful the type of clients you're bringing in, because it might not be the best thing for your business.
100%. And if I'm listening to this conversation, how I know if I'm a good fit? I'm resonating with what you're sharing and so on, but I want to know if I'm a good fit to reach out to you, Brian, and work with you. Who am I?
For my sales coaching, a lot of it's, I'm specifically working with B2B founders. So early stage founders, think of like 0 to 1 million in revenue. That's the focused area. Like, here's the thing too. This is something I think going back to like, what do you want? I could do sales training with anyone. There's plenty of big companies I can go after and try to do sales training. I love, and I think partly because I've been doing the podcast so long and I've interviewed founders and I've listened to, documentaries and autobiography. I just love the founder story. And I feel like I'm a young founder myself, that I want to work with them. I want to help people get to 0 to 1 very quickly. And the best way to do that is learn the skills to sell. So so the best fit for me that I found, or at least that starts the conversation, is if you're an early stage B2B founder. You don't have to be a technical founder, but I found those are the folks that they're technical founders that need to sell. They don't know the first thing to do. So those are the folks I try to help out the most.
Awesome. And where is your preferred way for them to get in touch with you?
I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn now. But the nice thing is my name is unique. So, Brian Ondrako, BrianOndrako. So you can go to my website, brianondrako.com, or, like LinkedIn, but you type that in on Google, like it'll bring up the podcast. It'll bring up probably children's books. It'll bring up a lot of different stuff, but it's nice. I don't have like John Smith where there's like, 10 million of them. So just still type in my name and find me in some spot. Pretty much website and LinkedIn though are the best.
Awesome. And I'll put anyway the links in the show notes below for those listening. And speaking of books, you have something coming, if I am not wrong.
I just launched my 3rd children's book. It's called My Best Friend Fred. It's a real special one. It's a story really about me and my brother. It's a fictional story, but kind of loosely based on me and my brother. So yeah, I've written 3 children's books. They all have kind of the unique, place in my heart, if you will. But yeah, My Best Friend Fred. If someone's got some young kids, it's like between 3 and 8, I think are the best readers for it. If they have siblings, it's a great story for them to read.
Wonderful. Awesome. And congrats. 3rd book. That's impressive.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. But it's part of what we've been talking about. I leaned into it and I just said, you know what? This is something that's important for me. I enjoy doing it. Let's figure out a path to get this launched and published. And they've all come in different ways, and they've been written in different time periods. And, there's no exact story. It's just that I decided to take that first step. I took control, like we talked about. And I said, I'm going to see this through. So I took action, and here we are 3 books later, and we'll see. No plans for a 4th yet, but who knows? We'll just see if the spark hits at some point.
100%. And as a conclusion, I just can say to those listening to listen to your advice and to get started, because without that small first step, nothing great can happen.
Right on.
Thank you so much for sticking to the end. If you enjoyed the conversation, you love the episode that I'll drop in 1 week from now. It's a conversation with Christian Dominic, a happiness coach, entrepreneur, and specialist in the psychology of addiction. Make sure to hit the subscribe button to be notified when the episode drops. And before you go, you might enjoy this conversation as well. Until next one, pura vida.